Perfect. Well, welcome to another episode of Great Work Day with me, Ella Bates, your skills trainer. And our podcast is all about gaining more joy and better results in the workplace. And we're discussing today how stress needs to stop in the workplace, quite frankly. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guest today, Lydia Di Francesco. Lydia is the CEO of Workplace Wellness Specialist at Fit and Healthy 365. She's worked in the wellness industry for well over 10 years, holds a Bachelor of Social Science and MBA from U Ottawa, is in progress. In fact, he's just certified, right, as a workplace health and performance practitioner. Not only that, she works with organizations to be strategic with employee well-being, mental health, a regular radio host, CHIN Radio Ottawa, a regular TV guest expert in magazines, and it's such a pleasure to have you with us here today, Lydia. Welcome.
I am so happy to be here, Ella, talking to you. And speaking of joy, you're always such a joy to be around. So
thank you. Likewise, which is why we have these fabulous chats and why we need to bring you on the call here today. So let's get really right into it. I want to ask you, Lydia, do you think there's such a thing as good work stress? Does that exist?
You know, this is a great question. And I actually took some time to think about it. And I actually think that there is. So I think that, you know, we talk about things like adrenaline and cortisol, and often that's viewed in a negative sense. And a lot of times it is negative because it's too long of a period where we're in those high levels in our body, right? Those hormones are high. There are times when it can be very effective to have that spike of adrenaline and cortisol. A lot of times it can help you get through a stressful situation. Perhaps, like for many people, public speaking is very stressful. And so in that time, you can have adrenaline going, which is actually that beneficial for you because it's going to help you get through that period where it may feel a little bit tricky, right? The problem comes when it's a long term. You're in a stressful state within your body for a long period of time without coming back out of that stressful state and into, you know, rest and relax. So often we talk about fight and flight mode or fight, flight, and freeze. And then there's the opposite, which is the rest and relax or rest and reset, or some people call it rest and digest, right? It's that resting phase. When we don't get in, like when we don't go back and forth between the two, that is when it can be really damaging on our bodies, actually physically, and cause a lot of longer term damage.
Right. And it can become the norm that you're constantly in this stressful state.
Yes.
And we don't want to have those conversations constantly. How are you? Oh, I'm dealing with so much stress. And well, sometimes that's exciting when you're in a project, like you say, or you're meeting a great challenge of which you have to face straight away. It can be a great thing, but longer term. Yeah, really interesting there. So do you think that a lot of us are even self-aware that we know when stress is being damaging?
I don't think so, unfortunately. I think so. There's really quick, because I have a whole 1 hour presentation.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm ready. I'm getting comfortable.
Really quick. So we have a few forms of stress. The main ones that we talk about being acute stress and chronic stress. So acute stress is you're walking down the street, you're walking across like an intersection, and a car blasts through a stop sign and almost hits you, right? It's sort of a one-time thing that happens. You're in a stress, and then the event is over, right? So this is a one-time thing, generally speaking. Chronic stress is basically the buildup or the too many acute stresses that don't stop with time in between that add up to then just a constant state of stress. And it's more in your body as opposed to mentally. I do believe that people can be physically, like their body is feeling the physical effects of stress and it's in a flight and fight mode. But because, like you said, people have been in that for too long, mentally, they may not even feel stressed, right? So if you were to ask them, are you stressed? They may say no, even if their body is in that state because it's been in that state for too long. So I think some people are self-aware. Some people are able to understand the signs and the symptoms and be in tune a little bit more with their bodies, and some people aren't. And if you're not, that's okay. We have become as grown-ups very good at ignoring what our body is telling us.
Isn't that the truth? And thank you for calling me a grown-up.
Yeah. Our body is talking to us all the time, right? So even little things like you have a headache, maybe it's because you didn't drink enough water. Not always. It could be for other reasons, but that's one of the signs of a headache, right? So that is sometimes your body's way of telling you, hey, by the way, you didn't drink enough water today. Even things, so we have physical signs of stress, we have cognitive signs of stress, and we have behavioral signs of stress. So I'll give a few examples for each. So on the physical side, could be things like upset stomach, nausea, feeling tired, more tired than just the like, I didn't get enough sleep last night. On the cognitive side, it's things like not wanting to make decisions or having troubles making decisions, or even having trouble focusing. And I'm just going to pause there for a sec. A lot of times with those cognitive things, we excuse it for something else. Oh, I'm just getting old, my memory's going, or oh, my memory's bad, or oh, I don't know, like, or you don't even know why. Like you're just not able to focus or it's hard for you to make a decision and you don't know why that is. You're not fully putting all the pieces together.
Right.
And then on the behavioral side, it can be things like getting angry quickly, losing patience quickly, even things like yelling and being mad and kind of like the outward expressions of some of those things. And again, even for others, right, we can look at other people who are doing those behaviors and think that they're just nasty people.
Right.
But it could be that's the manifestation of stress exhibiting itself in their body, but they don't necessarily realize that. They maybe just think like, oh, I just don't have a lot of patience, or I'm just in a bad mood today, and they don't really know why. So these are some of the things that people should be paying attention to. And so what I would recommend to our listeners is that if you're not sure, or if you think you don't have a good level of self-awareness, first of all, it's okay. Be kind to yourself and don't beat yourself up about it. Very normal. I want you to pay attention to the physical things first, because those are the easiest ones. So pay attention to when something stressful happens, you will know because there's physical things that happen because of it. So again, the things like, even your heart beating faster, the sweaty palms, like these are some of the things that we would associate maybe with like anxiety or nervousness. Again, the upset stomach, or like you're not hungry or you're too hungry. These are some things to pay attention to, and then try and connect the dots. If you notice right away, then immediately look at what is going on around you. What could be triggering that stress?
Let me, I'm going to draw you back a little bit there, Lydia. That's lots of information. So I want to just process it a little bit. There's a part in between, because not everybody, there's another pandemic here, the not being present. That's self-aware. We're so busy. We're just like, oh, got a headache, pop an asprin. Let's carry on. I've got a stomach ache. Let me try and eat something. And maybe I'm thirsty. Let me grab a glass of water. We're constantly not looking at the root cause. And you're right. It's like taking that time to sit and think, what triggered that, what happened right before it, but how do we get more present, where we're actually looking at our levels of stress and saying, is this stress helping me? I'm in a real challenge and this is good. I've got the energy to be able to fight the bear, fight the project that I'm working on, hit the deadline. And when is it hindering me? How do we get to that part before we can get to the reflection part, in your opinion?
So again, I think it's the having the desire to want to increase that level of self-awareness, and actually, thinking like, I should be better at this, or I want to be, let me rephrase, I don't like shoulding. I want to be better at this. This is a skill that I am lacking in and I want to improve. And that to me is the first step, is deciding that this is something you want to do. And then, really it sounds so simple, but it's the starting to pay more attention and really just noticing these things. So instead of, because I think that we do notice them kind of, and then we immediately disregard.
Right.
So it's getting over that little hump of once you kind of notice, you immediately disregard, right? It's kind of like if you have to go to the bathroom, like sometimes you do know, and then you're like, but I need to keep doing this, and you stop, you don't even think about it, and then all of a sudden, like you're like an hour later, you're like, oh yeah, I had to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Right? Like, we can actually do this. We can't ignore these physical things in our body to a certain extent. And so it's kind of trying to catch it when you first realize it and not immediately disregard it.
Having that conscious awareness,
right?
that you're looking for the self-awareness. Okay, I've got backache. Is it because I carried that 10-pound box, or is it because I'm carrying the weight of the pressures of life right now? And kind of what's the root cause? It's everything's root cause analysis. We're so quick
and I think even if you want to make it a little slower of the process, don't even try and analyze the root cause. Just start being aware of like, oh, okay, my tummy's really sore. Okay, I am noticing that. And then if you want to take it further, sure, great. If you need to just start with that, that's okay too, right? There can be multiple steps. But I think it's the choosing that this is something you want to do and you want to start paying attention, and then actually just starting to pay attention. And when you notice these little things, or you notice that, like, I know for me, like, I know now, because I have a pretty good level of self-awareness, that even before I get to like being grumpy with someone or not being able to make a good decision, if I already wake up knowing I'm more tired, or I'm going through something that day that's not related to work, I already know I'm not going to be good at making decisions. So I can pre-warn people, like, by the way, unless it's super urgent, today is not a great day for me to be making an important decision. Maybe little decisions.
Great, emotionally safe boundary that is. And imagine in the workplace if people did that. There was and I'm going to find it for our listeners. I'm going to put it on the comments here on the podcast. There was a company, Lydia, I don't know if you saw it, where they put in their Slack where you can actually
the not 100% today. I did.
It was,
I screenshot it so that I can share it later.
Oh my goodness, it's brilliant. It was like not 100% today. Because sometimes we're not 100%. Sometimes, I love how excited we both got over that, because this is revolutionary. This is disruptive, because now we've got the safety of saying emotionally, I'm not 100% today. Don't ask me to make big decisions. Don't ask me to make big changes. Today's not that day, but tomorrow will be, because I'm working on it. I'm taking some rest. I'm drinking more water, whatever it is. And that's both mentally and physically. You know, I'm not feeling so great, but I can get all my goals to do, but don't give me anything else to do. And we need to feel more safe to do that. But when we have that awareness, we can tick that box. And whether it's on Slack or Teams or Zoom, or even a quick message to your manager, hey, I'm not on form today. Don't worry, all the deadlines will be met. But here's my limits. And when you have that self-awareness, you can set those boundaries more. I mean, I love, again, I'm going to say it again, I love how passionate we both got about that, because boundaries help with lowering stress. We know this. But also it encourages those who aren't maybe as self-aware as you are, Lydia. And of course, this is your field of expertise.
Let me just say, it's been years of working on this.
Thank you for that disclaimer.
Please, don't think that you're going to just magically be self-aware and you're going to be knowing all your triggers. No. It's going to take a while. For sure. Yeah.
But it starts with that conscious awareness. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are on body scanning. I know a lot of people who meditate and are very much into that level of relaxation. They do morning body scans, or even evening body scans, to get more physically in tune with what's my body saying to me today. Okay, my neck's hurting. Maybe it's saying I'm sitting down too long. Maybe I need to do a couple of stretches or go for a walk for that Tim Hortons instead of driving in the car. And what are your thoughts over body scanning?
So I think body scans are great. I think it may be a bit much for a beginner to do it, because it takes a bit of effort. It takes some time. If you're going to do it and you're new, I would absolutely find, I'm sure on YouTube, there's a lot of options for you to just listen to someone talk you through and walk you through it. There's a few different ways. There's ones where you just pay attention to each part of your body. There's other ways where you pay attention to that part of your body. You actually tighten up the muscles and then you relax the muscles, and that actually helps with the relaxation. So there's kind of two different types of body scans. But again, that may be a bit of a far away step for some people
Yeah.
to do. It takes a bit more effort to get there.
Right.
But it absolutely can be an effective tool for sure.
And all part of that mastery of what is our body and our minds
Mm-hmm.
telling to us, and paying
Mm-hmm.
attention. That's what
Yeah.
emotions
Yeah.
are. That they're, their energy in motion. What's this telling me? I'm getting really impatient with my colleagues right now. I might just need to take a step back and go, what's going on today? Okay, it's
Yeah.
because of these pressures. Let's
Yeah.
talk about pressures at work for a second,
Sure.
Lydia.
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes, I mean, we know there's a few of them, and some of them
Yeah.
we put on ourselves, don't we? Let's be honest here. With there's
Oh,
we've spoken about it before, the
absolutely.
unwritten pressures
Mm-hmm.
of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind a lot of times is perfectionism, right? And I am recovering perfectionist. I'm actually pretty good. I've been getting a lot better, honestly, and really embracing this sort of. I still maintain a level of excellence, but I have let go a bit of the perfection side, and like done is good, or whatever that little phrase is. Done is as good or whatever, or as good as perfect. So that can be a thing for sure. Another thing is emails and the whole email world of things, and feeling that need to respond immediately or late at night or on the weekends. And this is one of the areas that I talk about in my practice with my clients in a lot of my workshops, is the boundaries, like you mentioned, and in this area in particular, because I find a lot of times people do place that pressure on themselves. Sometimes there are workplaces where it is an unspoken thing that is like, you need to be responding and it's expected. It is usually unwritten or unsaid, but through the practice of everybody, right? So when I talk about boundaries, one of the things that I say is that basically your behaviors dictate the expectations of others. So if you behave in a certain way, right? If you, Ella, send me an email on a Friday afternoon, and I like every Friday afternoon, let's say you're sending me a work email, I'm responding on Saturdays, you are going to come to expect I will respond to you on Saturdays.
Right.
So if one Saturday happens and I don't respond, you are going to then be like, why isn't she responding? She always responds. That expectation is set. So this is good in the sense that we can change expectations by changing our behaviors.
100%.
Sometimes it takes time to change the expectations, and sometimes it's necessary to be obvious about the fact that you are changing the expectation and having a conversation around it. One example that I have is one of my clients was telling me that she likes to work doing emails in the evenings, like 7 to 8 p.m. is like her sweet spot of time. The day is over, the hubbub and all the bustle and the communications that's flying and meetings is over. And she likes to just go through her emails and send a bunch of messages. What she has done to help people not feel that pressure of like, and I think she's like a boss of people, so she's emailing people underneath her. So what she's done to help alleviate that pressure is actually saying in the email, for tomorrow, brackets, Tuesday, or whatever day it is, here's what I want you to do. Or this isn't urgent for today, it can be done whenever. So she's setting it up for them to know that they don't need to act on it immediately. Wow. And I think that's a really smart practice.
It's beautiful.
The other thing you could do, again, is using the send later feature.
Yes.
But the problem with that she brought up too is that she got some feedback, again, from her staff being like, we open our computers in the morning and it's like, ding, 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 ding. There's like 5 emails. Even if she didn't send later, they're still there, right? So again, that's where she made the conscious effort to be a little more specific about maybe the urgency of each item. Right. So,
and what a beautiful way to honor other people's boundaries as well. And when you have those partnerships, and I put that for those who are watching us live, you'll see here, the inverted comma. It's a partnership. We teach people how to treat us. We 100% do.
Absolutely.
And that's a great example of a great leader.
Yeah.
I mean, truly
Right. So
congratulate them for something so
she's
simple yet effective.
exactly right. So imagine though, she wasn't doing that. And every day at 7 to 8 p.m., she's blasting through her emails. Her colleagues are getting them perhaps and thinking like, oh my God, my boss is emailing. She needs this right away. I
Right.
gotta, you know what I mean? The other thing that I want to bring up is, especially around emails and work schedules in general, is that we know now we're living in this new era of flexibility for most people, for knowledge workers, professional workers, that sort of thing, right? So we have the flexibility of working different hours, which is great, but can also muddy the waters in terms of like, what is work time, what is not work time.
Yeah,
And
valid.
here's where I like to recommend conversations.
Oh,
As
doesn't that sound so simple?
as a team, talk to your colleagues, talk
Yes.
about
Yes.
what your schedule may or may not look like, and it may change, and that's fine. But talk about the practices of how do we know maybe when something is urgent or if it's not urgent. And
Right.
let's be really careful with labeling things as urgent.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time it's really not.
That's
So
building that culture around
right?
the best practices of your workplace. This is
Mm-hmm.
what it means when I say this. Or
Yeah.
I want to go back there again. Like, honestly, your friend has hit the nail on the head. Use the email subject line. Action
Sure.
required today.
Right.
Urgent now.
Yeah.
Don't deal with it. Don't open this until Monday. Or like, what,
Right?
and then it becomes a choice factor. So for those
Sure.
people, like you say, who are working the weekend because they like to catch up and
Yeah.
maybe they take the kids to school in the morning and that's their offset of hours. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's not an expectation of everyone. But have a conversation. We're going to say it again. Have a conversation. This is a partnership of flexibility where beautiful things can happen. Boundaries can be put in place very psychologically safely, whilst being vulnerable, because that's where magic happens. Imagine if we were taught things like that in school. And that brings me to my last question here, Lydia.
Yeah.
With the cash in mind back, just the 1 or 2 years since you were in school.
And only 1 or 2, yeah.
Tell me, if you could go back there and
Yeah.
request of your teachers to teach you something that you know now to be
Yeah.
so advantageous to you in your business and the workspace, what would that thing be that they would teach you?
Oh my gosh. I think for me, and this is for me because this is an area that I have been working on personally, is that you are not your work.
Yes.
You are you, and your work is your work. And yes, you do the work, and it is a reflection of you and your excellence and your abilities and all that, but it is not you.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn that. I've had to, and it's still a work in progress, but to separate myself from what it is that I do and what success means from like a work standpoint versus a me standpoint. And in particular for people, anybody who has a job where they're rejected, let's say, or like, for me, and you, for example, like we have our own businesses, we pitch to clients and sometimes the clients say no, or they ignore us or whatever. I've had to learn it's not a Lydia thing. It's not that I'm a bad person or that I didn't do a good enough job, or it's not a me thing. And it's not a reflection that I'm not a great person. Right. I think that would be definitely one of the things that I would want to teach my younger self. Because
well, you've heard it here now.
Yeah.
Teach them, career counselors everywhere. Hear it now. What you do for a living does not define who you are as a person. And we need to teach more and more people that, because we shouldn't be looking externally for validation for how amazing we are. We simply need to know it.
Hard. Yeah. And it's a hard thing. And if, we're talking about this and you're like, oh my God, I do this. A lot of people do. And I think it's probably a cause of a lot of the big egos and the big problems that happen in the workplace, is because people are so associating themselves with their job and their status and all that.
Right.
But
that's a whole other podcast we need to go on. Like why people micromanage the ego, the power, or the lack of power and accountability and empowerment. And if we just knew that one thing, again, career counselors, teachers, if you're listening to this podcast today, teach people what you do for a living does not define you. It's how you make people feel. Maya Angelou said that. It's not what you do for people, it's how you make them feel. And
Yeah.
and we could go right down deep into that. I'm reading a book right now by Shazad Charmaine, Positive Intelligence, PQ. If you haven't heard of
Oh,
it, I definitely
PQ.
recommend you check it
That's
out.
right.
It's the new thing,
It's
if
a
we have a
new
positive
thing.
mindset, but it
I
all
mean,
starts
let's
there.
yeah, I mean, like EQ too. Like, let's get in on that train. Like,
Right.
I think I'm really heartened to see that there's a lot more discussion about emotional intelligence
Agreed.
in the workplace chatter amongst leaders and HR professionals. I am seeing a lot more conversation about that, which I think is really the next level of where we need to go in terms of workplace and wellness and even your whole theme of having a great work day. If more people had better emotional intelligence, how much better would everybody's work day be?
100%.
Right? Like,
We just need to
so.
focus on, there's two key things in the workplace: having a
Mhm,
great time doing what you do, and having
mhm.
great results and serving beautiful people who need
Yeah,
our service. It's
exactly.
really that simple. But the journey to get there isn't simple. So, Lydia, I thank you so much for your
Oh my
amazing tips
gosh.
today. I feel there's a whole other podcast in there. Let's bring you
Sure.
back another time. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. And for those listening today, thank you for joining us on this episode of Great Work Day, the podcast that's about making more joy and better results in the workplace. And we really hope you've enjoyed the conversation with myself, Ella Bates, your skills trainer, and of course, Lydia, work wellness specialist. Ooh, that was a tongue twister, wasn't it? Please check out how both of us could possibly help you grow in your career with the confidence, capabilities, and the inspirational skills you need to have a great work day every single day. And of course, to listen to another podcast with us at Great Work Day, simply subscribe on our YouTube channel, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or wherever else you decide to listen to your podcast. Thanks for joining us.